Joining us in the studio, we have Nana Heninto, trademark hat on, and of course, he is a senior campaign advisor to Alan Kyerematen of the Movement for Change. Should I add that you're a former General Secretary of the New Patriotic Party?
It's a historical fact.
It's a historical fact. All right. And we also have Kofi Koranteng, who is an independent presidential candidate. He was in the 2024 elections.
Gentlemen, welcome to the AM show. I want to start with you, Kofi Koranteng. How did it go for you, the election? You were quite confident that Ghanaians would turn out for you. I was trying to actually find exactly what figure you pulled in the presidential election, but I haven't found that yet. But tell me, how do you think you fared?
I think we did very well. You know, elections, usually people would have different twists and turns and perspectives on elections. But my take, which I think it's really the take that everybody should be looking at, is Ghanaians went to the poll and made a statement. They made a statement that they were more concerned about things that they had a challenge with, which is how President John Mahama was treated in the last cycle. And they wanted, as sympathetic as we are as a people, they wanted to give Mr. Mahama another chance because they thought he had been misrepresented by the Akufo-Addo Bawumia government. So they gave him a chance that, listen, we're going to give you a chance for you to come and straighten out things because we think they lied on you, which in some cases they did. So come in and finish your term and let's see what, but this time don't fail us. And they were not willing to look at any other candidate for that matter. If you look at the numbers and you study the numbers well, the same people who voted for the NDC, the same amount of people who voted for the NDC went back and reaffirmed their commitment to the NDC. But then people in the MPP were disappointed by their party's performance, and approximately 2.1 million people did not show to confirm their commitment. So it was, we want to bring our president back to show Ghanaians he's better than what you guys made him out to be. And the other party said, you know what, we've been disappointed by our party, so we're not going to go vote. So, but as far as I am concerned, they know I'm good. They believe in me, but they just said, you know what, out of fairness, let's let Mr. Mahama go to complete his 8-year term. It has nothing to do with the numbers.
Okay.
If I may, just quickly, before you actually get to the transition bit, that math about, you see, some 18 plus million people registered to vote. Out of that, we had a turnout of about, what, north of 10 million, about 11 million. You can't make assumptions, and I've seen people make assumptions that, oh, in the last election, the MPP got about 6 million, and so it is a net loss. It is, you don't own anybody. That's one thing politicians should come to. You don't own people as NPP, you don't own people as NDC, you don't own people as independents. Absolutely. Get used to that as politicians.
But that's
you
what
don't
I'm
own
saying.
us. So this bit about, 2 million more people didn't show up to vote for. No, the floaters are becoming more, and the party caucuses may be shrinking. So this bit about, maybe some people didn't show up to vote. It could also be that based on the low voter turnout, it was just those who showed up to vote. This was how they felt. That's it.
No. But it goes to my point. My point is, of course, you have to take, when you juggle all the numbers and you put it together, the bottom line is there was a deficit of 2.1 million. So that you could slice it any way you want, but 2.1 million did not go. But we know that on the NDC side, at least the same numbers are showed, because it could also be argued that, listen, if people really did feel the way that the numbers showed as far as on the NDC side, then why didn't we get more? If we went up until the same number of people who showed up the last time, then maybe the lid theory came in, which is they hit the lid and came down.
Right.
But, you know, so, but from my perspective, because I went around and spoke to a lot of people, and I got the feeling people got this thing. People understood me. And without a doubt, they still call me and tell me, hey, listen, without a doubt, you have the best policies, which I believe I do.
Okay.
You know
we
what I'm
just,
saying?
We just
So-
listened to, let me circle back to the conversation we had with Mahama Yariga on the transition team,
Mm-hmm.
which was inaugurated yesterday. What do you make of it?
Well,
From the government and the, president-elect's team. What do you make of the team, and especially on flagging that 240 million Ghana cedis and all that?
from our experience after 32 years of watching the MPP NDC and their performance, I can only say that we are yet to see what the results and the outcome will be. I work from a perspective of results. Nothing really shakes me down in terms of all the, all the makeup results. So we want to see what this. We know we have a huge problem. Ghana is basically terminally ill, and Mahama would have to bring the axe down. In my last statement, my advice to him is he has to bring the axe down. Enough for the, Tea Party stuff. The axe has got to come down. So that we will see the value that the transition team will bring to his government once it's installed. And we're looking forward to...
On bringing the axe down, does this feed into it? Flagging this payments, these recruitments and all that, does that feed into your narrative? Of bringing the axe
Absolutely.
down?
Well, yeah, we got to... Listen,
good start,
he's got to be... he's got to go in pounding.
Right.
No, seriously, because listen, if he doesn't have this attitude and really wanting to fix this thing, then nothing is going to happen. We're coming in at a net loss. So there is a heavy climb up. We need to retrieve the monies, and we need to retrieve all the monies. And it's also going to affect his administration, because you cannot point to the NPP and not point to the NDC, because...
Are you speaking retrospectively, or you are speaking about moving forward? And let me add, there's been talk about Operation Recover or Loot, ORAL, as they call it. In fact, some people have specifically called for action on the SML deal, on the Ejapa deal, and all of that. So what exactly do you mean?
But that's, you're absolutely right. And this is what I'm saying, that, listen, we're not going to go to IMF. We can't go to IMF. He has to stay away from IMF. So how are we going to get the money? Well...
He says he will review, not to stay away.
Well, review is a nice, sexy word, which really means nothing. We want results. So we're not talking about review. We know that, listen, we have records, so we know it happened. Go in and extract, review.
Okay. Let's
right.
move to okay, Benjamin.
Just quickly, I see Vincent Percy Adai sending a message on the back of what I was asking about 2 million votes. He says, Mr. Host, do you understand trend analysis? Vincent, I'm sure you are the expert here. I'm sure you know a lot more about trend analysis. I'm sure you're the expert. So as and when we activate the phone lines, you can call in and explain it better to us, respectfully. Thank you.
Mr. Quarantine, I'm sure you have some quick reflections on what we've said so far, but I just want you to maybe assess for me how all these small, I know you don't like to be called smaller parties, but the other political parties, apart from the two major ones, how they delivered in this election, and whether you think that going forward, maybe in the next 4-8 years, they stand a chance, or Ghana will see us break away from the duopoly.
Well, let me just say this, and I think there is so much that we're not considering that we need to consider as a people. I love the fact that Benjamin talked about structurally there are things that ought to change in Ghana, or no amount of leadership can change anything. The foundation has been laid wrong, and everybody comes in with a perspective of building something on top of the foundation. It's not going to yield much, plain and simple. And that's why I came in with the mega agenda for Ghana, which is the only pathway to change Ghana. And if you are, if you've done your analysis, you would know that, Kofi, you're absolutely right. If you don't change the Constitution, nothing will change. If you don't eradicate corruption and punish people who have stolen from us, cause financial loss to the state, and take our money back, you go back to the IMF. If you don't institute a national development plan and make it mandatory, people will come in with their manifestos and run the country down. If you don't reduce government and make it practical, make it an airtight system, and you have 50, 60, 70 ministers, it's ridiculous. It means you clearly don't know what you're doing, because you could run it with 10. 10. If you don't invest heavily into agriculture, you don't even have food security. You need income coming in, and you can only do that through agriculture, prudently through agriculture, and no other way. So these are the 5 points of the Quarantine Mega Agenda for Ghana. But now, let me just say this. These are some of the points that we need to understand about our politics in Ghana. We have a huge majority of our people who are not versed in terms of politics. We know that. So narratives are built for them to make a decision on where to go. They go, you give them a muggy cube, you give them a cup of rice, they'll vote for you. And it affects the politics. You also need to understand...
I don't think that's respectful to the Ghanaian voter, because we see shifts over time from there. So let's give the Ghanaian voter credit.
No, listen, I'm not taking credit away from, I'm just telling you what's on the ground, because I was on the ground. So hear me out. A couple of other things. The way that the electoral system is plotted out, there is no way a smaller party outside of MPP NDC can win. You have close to 40,467 polling stations. At all of these polling stations, you have to have reps manning these polling stations, because this is where the hemorrhaging starts. If you hemorrhage at the polling station, it wouldn't matter what happens at the constituency level. It wouldn't matter if you have agents at the national level, regional level.
My sincere apologies for having to do this. Please pardon me. You're in the studio. You have the benefit of our coming back to you right here. Could you hold that thought for me?
Sure.
Briefly.
Sure.
Yeah, we come back into the studio, to be fair, of course, because Kofi Quarantine, you were making a point, and I had to interject. My apologies once more.
No problem at all, Benjamin. And you know, it's funny, you would bring in Prof to speak eloquently about our security issues, but this is exactly why I always have a different perspective on how to handle things and how things ought to be handled. When a body is diseased, when you have cancer, you don't bring in a mortician. You bring in a nutritionist, a homeopath, so that the person changes their diet, they're mineralized, and the body heals. You bring in a mortician, they're telling you after the fact. And the reason why I say that is the violence we're seeing has happened, and it's happening as a result of what? The perception, the general perception that something did not go right. People feel they're being disenfranchised. Processes with the election process was not transparent, and a lot of people feel that there are loopholes for other people with power to take advantage of. And this is exactly what I was saying. So if rather than you wait for something to happen and bring in a security analyst, why don't you bring in an analyst to foresee a problem, diagnose it, fix it, so that we don't have this? We always come back to the table and talk about, oh, well, this happened, how can we fix it? No, it's too late after the point. This is Monday night quarterbacking. This is not... Okay, so a couple of things. So you have almost 41,000 polling stations. You expect a political party or an independent candidate to have agents to man these polling stations so that the hemorrhaging that happens at the polling stations don't happen before it goes to the constituencies. Who pays for this 41,000 people? It's a responsibility of the political entity. That means the playing field before you start is not even. They have messed you up before you start. You talk about, oh, Alan Chermanting, you talk about Cheddar, you talk about Kofi Quarantine and everybody else. Well, how can they play on the level playing field when they're disadvantaged by 41,000 polling stations? How did that happen? Now, another thing. Who has the power to man 41,000 polling stations? You have to be an MPP or NDC because these are the only two entities that have the financial might.
So, Ab initio, the process is not fair. You will
Absolutely
never be
not
able
fair.
to
There's
fight
no
them.
way. They have dispositioned you before it starts. Now, let's go back to electoral commissioner. Did they do their mandated job in making sure everybody coming into the arena to run as a candidate were scrutinized in terms of their financial ability, where they get their money from, their assets, how much money they were going to spend into this campaign? They didn't do that. Did they do that? This whole political process.
Don't you go through an assets declaration?
They didn't do any assets declaration, which, yeah, I just don't even have the frame of mind now. But this whole political process was a fraud. It's illegitimate.
Is that not a bit of a
No, it's not.
harsh word to use?
You
A
always
fraud?
go back-
Because no, wait. This is the
gosh.
point. It's not so much about sometimes. If you say it's a fraud, do you know what that means? You're basically saying that the president we have is illegitimate because the system itself. That's what you're saying. That's
Okay,
the
so
end
now-
of what you're saying.
But that's true.
He's illegitimate?
No, see, he's been voted for, but there is justification for somebody to come and because the electoral commissioner did not do its job. If we don't know how people are making their money, if Messi gets on the field to play, and Messi has an electronically induced soccer boots to play with that gives him an advantage because he feels like he's playing on air, is his win against another team legitimate?
How? Explain the electronic bit as far as the ECs work.
Because they gave somebody an undue advantage. We don't know how they made their money. The EC.
But if you say if none of you declared, then it was still the same playing field, wasn't it?
No, it can't be because people are more positioned than the others financially. As
Okay.
we can see on the screen as you were interviewing Professor Neen, that people carrying refrigerators and who we saw the MPP gave away refrigerators and hair dryers, and so obviously it's uneven. If you can have one party give 276 constituencies pickups with branding on it, and I didn't have the money to do that, that dispositions me. So I am seen differently from an MPP candidate, not because they're smarter than me, not because their policies are going to help Ghana than mine, is because they're positioned on the ground better than I am because the electoral commissioner just allowed for the free flow to come in.
All right, hold the thought right there. Interesting points you make. I agree with you that the smaller parties or independent candidates are disadvantaged, even in the balloting process. I thought you would even talk about that. But,
I didn't get to that, but I'm gonna
being
definitely
that
talk
you
about
can't reflect fraud on the system like that, a paintbrush, general like that,
No,
because then,
see-
but that's just a quick point.